Follow me, and I will make you fish for people. Dare I say it, not one of Jesus' greatest lines. Jesus has begun his ministry in Galilee, proclaiming the good news of God, saying, the time has come. God is drawing near. Renew your lives, which I find compelling. But when he passes along the sea and sees Simon and Andrew casting for fish, he says, follow me, and I will make you fish for people. Why would being a follower of Jesus mean catching people like fish? Surprising them with the snare of a net, dragging them up from the water, up into the air to suffocate and be eaten. This phrase, fish for people, suggests some of the worst of Christian past and present. An evangelism which is good news for no one, but aggressive and manipulative and ultimately a trap. Perhaps it is enough to remember that Jesus is talking to fisher folks. This is an obvious metaphor for him to use. Maybe it would have been different if he had been talking to carpenters or farmers or something else in this passage. Jesus could not possibly know all of the unfortunate associations that we would come to have today. But a few years ago, this story came to mean something entirely different to me when I began to think about all the things that nets can do. Nets can be thrown for a catch of fish, yes. And nets can also be stretched out in order to catch someone who is falling from a great height. They can be cast out onto the surface of the water in order to keep someone connected and afloat. I love the idea of the first disciples being net menders, of the work of ministry having to do with the making and mending of nets. Are we not called to create and maintain networks of physical and spiritual connection, networks of love and support for people to fall into and grasp onto as they need? This year, in addition to all the things that we normally do here, a whole network of people within and beyond this congregation came together to make our heating renovation possible. It may not be immediately obvious why a heating system is so important for ministry. But of course, without a heating system, we can't continue to use this beautiful resource of a building, which holds the echoes of over 100 years of worship, and provides space for us and for our wider community to do all kinds of important things. And the heating system that we had been nursing along for years, perhaps even decades, was not in alignment with our values as a congregation to care for God's creation. So we have come together with painstaking research and design and implementation, with financial gifts from members and friends and even anonymous strangers, with a book and a bake sale and an earth concert and an auction full of creativity and generosity. We came together, and we are so close to having a fully functioning heating system in the whole building. I really wanted it to be there for today, but maybe this week, we'll see. The sanctuary is the last to come online. And once that electricity is as green as it can be, which the town of Concord has made a commitment about, we will have gone from generating the equivalent of 144,000 pounds of carbon dioxide a year to generating zero, which is pretty amazing. To God be the glory. None of us could have done this by ourselves. It took a network with many people giving many different kinds of gifts of imagination, skill, time, and money. And I have never been more aware of how our network here at the church relies on the past. This project would not have been possible without the gifts that were left to us by people who are no longer with us, but who entrusted this community of faith with the wealth that they were able to pass on. So I want to take a little time this morning to talk about these folks, some of these people whose bequests have changed our present and our future. You may recognize some of these faces. Annabelle Shepard on the upper left was a woman of dedication to her family, to the town of Concord, where she held many important positions, and to this church. She was well known for her leadership capacity, decisiveness, and strength. As a member here for 45 years, Annabelle led us as a member of the trustees. She donated the wonderful piano that we enjoy every week and which we were totally dependent on while our organ was wrapped up. She paid attention to every detail of our budget and was always ready with a wry remark and a sparkle in her eye. Annabelle was unstintingly honest and took issue with many things at church, including the Lord's Prayer. She did not like that. And our decision to remove most of the pews from our sanctuary. How amazing, then, that she still entrusted us with a piece of her legacy. When I visited her towards the end of her life, she frequently told me, "Hannah, I am a churchgoer." I like to think that having her gifts used for something so deeply practical as heating the church would have pleased her very much. Bob Carter, in the center here, was born and raised in Concord. From 1943 until 1994, he was the proud owner of the Carter Furniture Company in West Concord, a business that he operated along with his late mother. When that business closed, the property passed to Minuteman Ark and has housed some of our members and friends, as well as important services for our community. Like Annabelle, Bob was a leader in the town of Concord. And at West Concord Union Church, he was a deacon, a choir member, and a Sunday school teacher. Later on, he joined a Lutheran church in Sudbury, but he still came by to visit us and share stories of earlier days. And his enduring affection for this community is clear from his generous parting gift. Early on during my time at this church, I was honored to meet Heather Siemens and her mom, Ann, who are pictured at the right. Heather was a committed member of Sunday Fellowship. She loved theater and music. She was kind and hopeful, passionate and joyful. We were all sad when Heather's life was shortened by cancer. She kept singing and smiling right until the end. Anne remained a steadfast friend of the church after Heather's death. Although Anne really wasn't religious at all, Heather always had been, with a deep confidence in God and in the good, and Anne was very grateful for how this community made space for Heather. After Anne's death, a part of her estate was left to the church in Heather's honor. Last January, we voted to use gifts from these 3 estates for our heating project. They formed the foundation on which we built as we raised money together. And then during the course of this year, we learned that we would receive another completely unexpected bequest from the estate of Natalie Freiberg. Natalie, on the bottom left, had an offbeat sense of humor. She enjoyed talking and being with people. She was an artist doing silversmithing and painting, pottery and quilting. She loved natural beauty, the ocean at Cape Cod and Maine, the Navajo dwellings in the Southwest, the flowers in her garden. She also loved cats. You can see one on her t-shirt if you look closely enough. Natalie faced many profound challenges in her life, with complicated family relationships and a long journey with Alzheimer's. Her life was also full of gifts, travel, and friendships, and a close relationship with her son, Eric, who died this past year. She was a dedicated member of this church, serving as the church secretary and moving the church office to her basement during the 1980s church renovation. She was a proud leader of Al-Anon meetings, and her bequest has profoundly changed our financial situation as we come towards the end of this project. More on that later if you're not already aware. So I invite you to reflect on the generosity of these folks and on the gifts of all who have come before us in building this community in so many different ways, both its physical spaces and its spiritual strengths. They have woven and mended a network of love, a community of faith strong enough to continue on today, supporting and connecting new people every year. I wonder what has drawn you into this web, into this small piece of the diverse and broad, that's not right. In the diverse and broad network of love and support that is this church. What have you received here, and what have you given? Please pray with me. Jesus, you call us, and for some reason, we have responded. Curious, longing, lost, broken, searching for something, and finding perhaps more than we expected. Thank you for stretching out this net to catch us, for weaving us into your web, for setting us to work, weaving and mending ourselves, until all are satisfied with food and love and justice. Amen.